This is Todd's truck. We got Diana's car. There's our rental back there. This is Todd and Diana's new home. It's not completely done yet. Last night was their first night in. This is Mother's Day of 1993. Mobile home is a 3-bedroom. Background, you can hear the dogs. Their neighbors across the road. They have a very, very large lot. It's their little tool shed. And the backyard. And the barking dogs.
Gosh, what's the name for chipstick? We should let them come back to stuff. Yeah. And I woke up and said,
Todd and Diane's house on the inside. Living room.
oh, that's sweet. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, oh, perfect rose. Look.
Jerry, look, it's cut last night. I went for that one.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You got a stuff cut again. Fine. Did you have big cups? Most of the time when we travel.
I had 2 things. I had a washer and
This is the master bedroom. Their little stuffed animals. Master bathroom. More stuffed animals. This bedroom set was Diana's when she was just a little girl. And let's we're out here. Sure.
Are you narrating while you're doing it?
A little bit.
This is the new coffee table that just exactly matches the end table. No, look.
Jerry said it's good quality.
Diana, who's this guy in the basket?
That's Margaret.
Margaret? This is Margaret.
Now when you look at it, it's
Speedy. Hello, Speedy. Oh, Speedy. How are you doing, Speedy? Yes, you're not supposed to walk toward the camera. You're supposed to look at the camera. Oh, Speedy.
all please walk toward the camera.
Oh, Speedy.
Hi, Speedy.
Yeah, that's a good pose.
Good baby, aren't you?
See, we're going to take you back and show you your picture to our kids. That's right. Oh, that's a nice pose.
Hi, Speedy. You feel better now? Got all your buddies. Nice soft bed. It's nap time.
Want to see Yoda?
Yeah, where's Yoda?
Oh my goodness. This is the front view of Todd and Diana's new home. Todd will brick in the underside. Oh, he's got a little bit of work left.
To the benefits of British subjects, spoken by George Washington, colonel of a Virginia regiment, in protest of the British Army's unequal treatment of its colonial allies during the 7 Years' War in 1757. That's a portrait by Charles. 1772, a detail from an oil painting. Very young George Washington there. We are at the Yorktown Victory Center, which chronicles America's struggle for independence through a unique combination of exhibits and outdoor living history. Yorktown's role as the site of the last major military campaign of the American Revolution is explored in the film The Road to Yorktown, which we're going to view in a short while. In the recreated Continental Army camp, costume staff demonstrates 18th century military techniques, cooking and medical practices. Daily farm activities are demonstrated at the 18th century farm site. We have picnic areas which are located in a scenic wooded area along the museum parking lot. A large selection of unique gifts and food items and toys are available at the gift shop, which I can't wait to see. The 7 Years' War was only one episode in a century-long struggle between Great Britain and France for dominance in the Atlantic. After a series of decisive British victories, the war ended in 1763 with the Treaty of Paris. By giving up its North American claims, France left Britain supreme on the American continent. Protecting the American colonies plunged Great Britain deeply into debt. As a result, the British were determined to exercise greater control over the colonists and force them to help pay the war's costs. But the maturing colonies were increasingly ready for self-government. In the United States today, we elect a president to lead our country. Before the Revolution, a king or a queen inherited power over England and the American colonies. We have paintings here of King George and King Louis, it looks like. After 1750, as the colonies matured, the British and Americans disagreed more and more on their respective roles within the empire. The British viewed the colonies as inferior and dependent children. The Americans saw Great Britain as an overprotective parent. These differing views set the stage for future conflict. The war with France had forced the British to loosen control over the colonies in order to gain their cooperation. With victory, however, the British attempted to tighten their colonial rule. One change in policy was especially important: the new willingness to use parliamentary authority and military power to achieve their goals. With a growing population, expanding economy, and freedom from French threat, the colonies increasingly resented British interference. That sound you hear in the background is a fellow chopping wood. I split that one pretty quickly.
I'll split, yeah.
Well, split the one here. Where did I look at it wrong? Let that be hollow.
Oh, see? Something so that big.
The 18th century kitchen gardens in Virginia were usually laid out in squares and planted in a loose, unstructured manner. The small farmer's garden was practical, filled with beans, vegetables, and root crops, which added variety to the family's diet. Herbs for cooking or medicinal purposes were also grown. Gardens were often enclosed with fences to keep out hogs or cattle, which roamed at will. I imagine Mama wasn't too happy if she came out and found her garden destroyed.
So some of your fall crop, you have to let those seeds, so each crop you let them seed. So what we've done here is we have just black is can be on the outside, white inside, just like that. You can boil it, you mix it with some other things if you want to have some carrots and stuff in there. And then of course we have our, let's see, collard greens. And some of those just go in the seed. Any of the greens usually has yellow flower. Really what is it? They all have yellow flower of some type. They were letting the collards, some of those go to seed. Next to it, which everybody thought was mustard, that's white turnips with purple top. That's that yellow one. And they're going to seed now. We're going to use these seeds for our fall planting. So we have to use our house that would have been used, that or chestnut. Chestnut you can't get because the chestnut one, white oak, we can get it, but most of the farms won't sell it to us because they want to keep it themselves. Because other people pay them wages for it. The other thing is we need it without all these branches because we won't want many mountains. You see how these branches are, well, this is a different kind of oak.
During the 1780s, the typical small Virginia farmer with his family of 5 to 7 people lived in a wooden 16 by 20 foot house, roughly the size of Todd's new living room. A loft provided additional space, probably for older children sleeping, and an exterior brick or wooden chimney furnished the heat. The farm might also have a separate kitchen, about 12 by 12 feet, a tobacco house, and a barn or a stable.
This is the medicine chest. There's a bee skip in the middle. The reason why they call it a bee skip is that they cut the top off at night. That's when the bees are quiet. They go in and get their honey. And then they will reach in, take out the queen bee, put her in a new skip. The other bees will follow along. They used no sugar in those times, so honey was their main sweetness. In here you'll find all kinds of different herbs that they used for their medicines.
Let them feel it. Don't tell until everyone gets a chance to smell it. Share it with your teacher.
Today we're going to have stuffed onions.
Smell it, but don't let it rot yet.
These are being done in our bake oven.
Good.
Those onions are stuffed with sausage. So we'd have pigs and things wandering on the farm, and now then you butcher them. So that's when you make your soap and your other stuff after you've butchered pigs or hogs. And these are baking right now. You can tell these bake ovens. People buy a Dutch oven today. A Dutch oven is nothing more than a glorified soup pot. You can't bake with that thing because the ashes will fall off the top.
You see you do it every day.
There you go.
What's in the skillet?
Cornbread.
Okay, it
Cornbread.
looks like cornbread to me.
Uh-huh.
Did you have to put a little grease in there so it didn't stick? No. So gosh, that looks good. That makes me
You can
hungry.
bake a chicken in about an hour. We have pheasants and chickens and ducks and geese close to the water.
Creamy, kid. We'll toss it in the pie.
Pheasant eggs and quail eggs. These are typical hen eggs, not that thing you buy today. The eggs we get today are from hybrid chickens. Breed them for meat or for eggs, so that's why the large egg. This is the size of the eggs. If you find an old recipe that's done with a pound of eggs, it's about 10 or 12 eggs. Same thing in these recipes call for 10 or 12 eggs. They're not those eggs. Or you could use maybe a goose egg to get the same thing.
Here's our tubs to wash your dishes.
Jim's cut about an inch too long in the sleeve. Here in the sleeve.
The arms are about
About an inch too long.
Just use glue.
This is about
in the waist.
the waist. About
This is another view of the
yellow bush.
medicine chest.
This rose is a
Our bee skip.
Now, what did we use Roman wormwood for? Getting rid of worms, huh? Make a tea out of it? Or?
Inside the house or inside the body.
Oh, really? Make the tea and
Or
drink it and get rid of that.
Or drink it, one way or the other.
Close-up of the bee skip.
Or chamomile, which is right here. Chamomile tea that will start blossoming after a while. After blossoms.
And while you're sitting in my waiting
This is where the ladies do the sewing. mending of the different clothes and uniforms the soldiers wear. Quite interesting. Now, when they first started out, before they had a house, they'd build a barn. And this barn would store their tobacco, and they would actually live in here until they were able to build a home. And once they were able to build their home, then they would move out of this. But at first, this would be where everybody would live. Here's a scrub board for scrubbing the clothes.
Could have been a good day for wash day.
They would have dried well today.
Or we might put all of our big bed linen stuff in the pot, stir it up, and, you know, really boil it down. It's a good day, good drying day.
What is that unit the lady is leaning against there?
It's a lye hopper.
Lye hopper.
That way you would also take your ashes from your fireplace and put those in there. And then you would just trickle water down through there, and that way you would get your lye water. And then combine that with also in that pot, you would use that for rendering down your fat.
Another view of the barn, tobacco shed.
Seems like a lot, but I think over the course of the year it isn't a lot.
No, it's funny on the main station.
The tobacco was hung in there, and then it would dry out and then be sold. Sold during the 18th century. Now this is your military camp. American flag. Pretty quiet day as soldiers are sitting around. This is their sword and part of their uniform. Looking down over here, you can see the bed. Looks like wood slats. Very uncomfortable. A little pot to keep your food warm.
Do you have any questions about anything? Just takes up less room if you put them together.
Those are musket blanks.
Oh, really?
6
And
men
they sleep
slept
with
in
their
these
boots on
tents
also,
at one
like
time.
You did in the tavern, so you didn't lose your boot there.
Yeah, if you want to
sleeping
dig
on the
one.
ground.
Daniel Morgan was a wagon driver in the French and Indian War. In the Revolution, he was an officer. So you don't have to be wealthy to be an officer. Most of your healthier officers are higher ranking. Washington was a colonel in the French and Indian War. That's why he commanded the chief. Nathaniel Greene, before the Revolution, was a Quaker. He's one of the, some argue, the best general in the Continental Army. And the head of the artillery, Henry Knox, before the war, he was a bookbinder. So he wasn't particularly wealthy. Well, it was going. This thing's fairly hot. Being in the sun heated it up. They don't have matches until the 19th century.
Oh, great.
That's how you start your fire days before matches.
We're in what we believe is the general's quarters. Desk.
Quite a few serving dishes here. Full pewter set. Porridge bowl. Various maps.
Brass chandelier.
I don't think it's brass.
That is not brass, that is a tin. Hammered out tin.
We've got brass over here, and I have no. Oh, I know what that is. That's
where
a
the-
wash basin, because he's got his leather strap over here and his soap and his brush for shaving.
Todd has found where they make the lead balls. There's the tool to form them with.
Top in your forming. That's a whole lot faster than pouring a mold, isn't it? Let the steam escape, I suppose.
This way you pull, you got it.
A little brass basin to wash in.
Kind of a box.
Horn.
So it is.
What do you got there?
Well, it would appear to be like a traveling soap dish. It's some kind of a covered box made out of horn again. Fits quite snugly. Very
Cigarette
unusual
case.
color. It's
Cigarette case?
very interesting.
Hold it up. Uh-huh.
You read that map.
She's a map on how to get back to Phoenix. Good luck.
Okay, here's your rations. They include a pound of beef or 3/4 pound of pork, a pound of salt fish a day, a pound of bread or flour a day, 3 pints of peas or beans per week, 1 pint of milk per man per day, or at a rate of 1/72 of a dollar, 1/2 pint of rice or 1 pint of Indian meal per man per week, 1 quart of spruce beer or cider per man per day, or 9 gallons of molasses per company of 100 men per week, 3 pounds of candles to 100 men per week for guards, 24 pounds of soft or 8 pounds of lard soap for 100 men per week. So I guess they did bathe. Sutures.
Horsehair used for sutures.
It's like part of a tail. As in smelling salts to use for poultices and whatnot.
Well, we don't know that germs can hurt you. So we don't know about the germ theory, so we don't know about infection. So we're not worried about infection. It's still occurring, but we call it putrefaction, which is basically rot. How do you prevent rot in meat besides refrigeration?
Oh, you salt it down.
You salt it. So we're applying salt to any type of wound, which prevents putrefaction.
Hence the old rub salt in the wound.
And it works. It doesn't work for the reason that we think it works. It doesn't actually cure the meat, the flesh. What it does is it sends a message to the brain, pain, to send white blood cells to the wound. White blood cells combat infection. Also, some of the salt will get inside the wound and cause it to take on water until it bursts. So it works, but not for the reason that we think it works.
I see. You've got some really impressive looking
For trephination. If you would receive a blow to the head, it's going to cause a bruise. And a bruise is internal bleeding.
So we're going to let it out.
Right. In your arm,
Boy.
when it starts to swell because of the fluid, the skin can expand to accommodate the swelling. In your head, the skull cannot expand because it's made out of bone. So if you receive a skull fracture or a condition called a subdural hematoma, which is basically a bruise between the brain and the skull, you have to relieve the pressure because the pressure is going inward, causing brain damage or death. So you have to vent the skull, and that's what this is used for.
Looks a little painful.
No. Actually, no.
Really?
The only nerves that are in the body are in the skin, in the flesh, the muscle. There's no nerves in the bone. The skin's very thin up on your head. So once you make the incision through the skin, you're
Is that much pain once it was through the eye then?
well, just missed the brain.
Okay.
Of course, an arrow through the eye would be like getting a stick.
What did you use this for? I don't know that.
For
retracted. Okay, that could also be retracted. Sometimes single phone retracted.
For a training area.
Holding this in the room. But that one is inactive. These are, that's basically removed.
Oh, I see. They're turning down. Yeah.
It's called a readout. Every one of these tools is used for that.
Really?
Every one of them. Let them have all steel handles like this one. Barrel on it. They're all used for that.
What do you use the motor
Muscle retract. One, two holes is used for motor on it, and then one for with one hole used for that. Well, actually, it's used for amputation. If they're down, it's used for amputation.
We are at historic Jamestown on the Great Road. From Jamestown Island, about a mile ahead, the old road to the mainland followed the course that we're walking on. Whether we would be on foot, on a horse, or on a carriage, the early colonists went to and from Jamestown through this road. It was a well-traveled road for even longer than a century that Jamestown was Virginia's capital town. Traces of that historic road are marked by the worn depressions behind us and the ditches.
Okay.
Traces of the historic road are marked by the worn depressions behind us and the ditches to the front of us on each side. See right over here through these trees? See this depression? That's where it was. And right over here, that would be the edge of the road.
Jamestown settlement. These are glass floors. Making glass like they did in the 1600s.
Shaping a core. That'll be small, and he'll put a steel bubble in it, and then he'll cool it down. When he reaches back in the furnace, he'll take out a much larger amount. If he tried to take a large amount out on a tube, it would lose its stability pretty quickly.
Just want to loose all over, I suppose.
Pardon?
But it just like
Just fall off. Crushing oyster shells.
But how do they know what proportion to use?
Trial and error, plus they were making glass in 54 BC over in Armenia. They're making red glass, in fact, because that's where the copper fields and gold fields were. Then glass blowing technique was developed in 1 AD by a Syrian in the Middle East. And then that carried forward to 1900s when they came up with the automated process. So what he does, he rolls it on a steel slab, and that cools the outer surface of the glass and forms a shell around it. Then when he blows into the tube, it transfers the heat from the inside of where the molten glass is to the outside of the shell. And that allows him the fruit wood mold, because they have high density grain and a lot more tolerant of the heat.
the bottom, and a puddle rod will be placed in the recessed porthole. And you'll put the neck in there, and then allow them to shape the neck and put that little pouring splash lake around it.
So what temperature does it go from in the furnace to what it is right now?
The glass is melted at 3,000 degrees during the night. It's turned down to 23,000, 2,400 in the daytime, and they take it out at that temperature. And then by the time it's gone, well, right now it's probably somewhere around 1,100.
So it does cool an incredible difference.
Well, he has 2 minutes to get it, the bottle made at that point. Then they stick it in and reheat it, manganese oxide.
Fascinating process.
Now this is gas-fired. It's not turned off, it's just turned up and down from 3,000 degrees down to 2,400 and back up. The layered kiln here to my right is set every morning at 700 degrees and it's turned off at night. All the objects made during the day are placed in there to cure or to temper down from 950 that's at now to 700 degrees that the kiln is maintained at. Then when they leave here, turning this off, they open the that.
It's got
They
the
were making
depression on the
fire
bottom.
because of the abundance of
And the flight lip up here for pouring.
And then the flag.
The Virginia Company of London chartered April 10th, 1606, founded Jamestown and sustained Virginia from 1607 to 1624. Very similar to the Masonic monument that we saw in Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay.
This monument was erected by the United States in AD 1907 to commemorate the 300th anniversary of the settlement here. Lastly and chiefly, the way to prosper and achieve good success is to make yourselves all of one mind for the good of your country and your own, and to serve and fear God, the giver of all goodness, for every plantation which our Heavenly Father hath not planted shall be rooted out. That's the advice of the London Council for Virginia to the colony in 1606. Keeping it. We're standing in the first English highway in America. It ran along the river shore and then turned inland and passed behind the church. Continued over the swamp to your left and out across the isthmus near where you came onto the island. Here the roadway was 30 to 35 feet wide. It was repaired from time to time by smoothing out the ruts and adding a few inches of sand. Today, the only remaining 17th century structure on Jamestown Island is this church tower, built in approximately 1649. Adjacent to the tower lie the foundation of Jamestown's third church, which was built in 1617, site of the first meeting of an elected assembly in America. Beyond the church are ruins of a Confederate fort built in 1861 and what may be the first cemetery at Jamestown. Pocahontas was the favorite daughter of Powhatan, who ruled the Powhatan Confederacy. She was born about 1595, probably at Weramokoko, 16 miles from Jamestown. Captain John Smith believed she had saved his life twice during the colony's first years. In 1608 and 9, she was a frequent and welcome visitor to Jamestown, often bringing gifts of food from her father. From 1609 to 1613, she was part of Indian society and was not seen by the settlers. In April of 1613, she was captured by the English while she was living on the Potomac River. They brought her to Jamestown as a hostage. She soon converted to Christianity and was baptized. Her marriage to John Walsh in April of 1614 helped to establish peaceful relations between the Indians and the English. In 1616, she visited England with her husband and infant son Thomas and was presented to the royal court. While returning to Virginia, she died on April the 21st in 1617 and was buried in St. George's Church in Gravesend, England. Today, many Americans claim descent from her through her son and granddaughter. Captain John Smith was born about 1580, the son of a yeoman farmer of modest income. As a young man, he escaped and journeyed back to Hungary to collect the promised reward of money and a coat of arms. He returned to England in time to participate in the settlement of Virginia. He was an arrogant and boastful man, often tactless and sometimes brutal. Physically strong and worldly wise, he made an excellent settler. However, his personality, his obvious qualifications, and his low social position infuriated many of the colony's leaders and settlers. Despite this, he was named to the first council in May of 1607. He learned the English language and became the colony's administrator. During the summer of 1608, he led a 3,000-mile expedition on the Ocean Coast to explore and map Chesapeake Bay and the Cumberland River. On September the 10th, 1608, the council elected him governor of Virginia for a one-year term. He was an able leader who understood both the Indians and the settlers' needs and the colony prospered. Captain Smith returned to England in October of 1609 following an accidental gunpowder bomb and became Virginia's most effective propagandist and historian. His trip relation of Virginia in 1608, his map of Virginia and 6
River.